In life, we're always striving to get to a destination. Success, whatever that means to you. And we do things that we think are the path to get there. You're gonna find out that you're going to fail. Because sometimes in life, the things we thought we knew turn out to be all wrong. My name's Chris Naugle, and in the past, I've done a lot of things. I've been self-employed at a young age. I've had t-shirt lines, a professional snowboarding career, skateboard and snowboard shops. I even spent 16 years on Wall Street. But let me show you the steps that I took to unwind what I thought I knew that just wasn't right. I'm gonna start with number one. Now, many of you can relate. When I was younger, my grandmother would always give me advice. And I'll never forget, as I got to the age where I was about ready to enter the workforce, my grandma said to me, Chris, make sure you find an employer that provides a retirement. And I said, oh, what do you mean, Grandma? And she said, well, when you go in for the interview, ask them if they have a retirement plan, like a 401k. And I said, got it. And then she said, and if they do, ask them if they match. And I said, what's a match, Grandma? And she said, well, if you put in $1, they also give you $1 up to a certain percentage. And I said, I think I understand. So it's like free money, right, Grandma? She said, precisely. I said, all right, so ask if they've got a retirement plan, might be called a 401k. Then ask if they do a match, which means if I put $1 in, they give me $1, and that's free money. Got it, Grandma. So I went out into the workforce, Wall Street specifically. You see, when I entered some hard times in the early 2000s, when the dot-com crash happened and the planes hit the tower, I had to get another job. You see, the pro snowboarding and the skateboard snowboard shops weren't just cutting all the bills. They weren't paying for everything. So I put my resume out. And I thought I'd end up delivering pizzas for a company called Little Caesars. Maybe you know it. But I went in and they weren't hiring delivery drivers. So the only people that actually called me were Wall Street firms. And I always remembered back to what my grandma told me. My grandma said, make sure you don't make the mistakes that we made. Ask if they've got a 401k. Then ask if they've got a match. So when I sat down for this interview and went through some of the things, and they asked me, Mr. Naugle, what questions do you have for us? I said, well, do you have a retirement plan, one of those 401ks? Why, yes, Mr. Naugle, we do. Great, check number one. And then I said, all right, well, number two. Do you guys match? Yes, Mr. Naugle, we match 3% dollar for dollar, which means if you put in up to the first $3, we're gonna give you $3 or 3%. And it was in a percentage, I'm just making it simple. And I thought I struck gold. So I started with this Wall Street firm. I did my job. I got there early. I left later than everybody else, and I put my money into that 401k. But I didn't just put the match in. See, I went way higher. I said, because why put in only 3% when I should put in 10? Can I afford to put in 10%? Well, that's what I did. And then every year as I made more money, I increased that. And I got up to the max. Wow, yes, there is a max in 401ks. And you know, I thought I'm doing this all right. I'm getting a tax deduction today, which is great. I'm gonna pay less in taxes on the money that I'm earning. Number two, I'm saving for that awesome day after 59 and a half years old where I can start taking money from this retirement account and I can sail off into the sunset and what they call retirement. Sounds good, right? I was taking financial knowledge and wisdom from my grandparents, my grandma specifically. And although I loved her, she was not well off. She was not financially free. Even after she retired, she still worked, partly because she wanted to, and partly because they needed to. Extra spending cash, they always called it. Was it really extra spending cash? Or was it because they were part of the 95%? So what do I mean by the 95%? Well, according to Social Security, pay attention, listen to this very closely. These are the statistics by the Social Security Administration. If we take 100 people, only 5 of those 100 people are going to be financially secure. And there's different realms to this financially secure. But 95 out of those 100 will not be financially secure. So what that means is that there's going to be a lot of 65, 75, and 85-year-olds working into the retirement, and it's not because they want to. My grandmother might have told me she worked at Bonton because she wanted to, but was it because she wanted to or because she had to? You see, we can play mind tricks with our minds. So let's now talk a little bit about what I didn't know. Well, here's what I didn't know. By putting money in that 401k and saving for this future day, what I was doing is actually harming myself, because the dollars I put in, although I did get a tax deduction today, or back then when I was doing it, that tax deduction was at a lower tax bracket than I'm at today. And today I'm at a lower tax bracket than I will be in 10 and 20 years from now. So in other words, by putting money in that 401k, taking grandma's advice, I was literally putting in money at the lowest tax bracket, and then someday later, I should have known, but I didn't, I will take that money out at a higher tax bracket. So I put it in at a lower tax bracket and I take it out at a higher tax bracket. Now folks, here's what we've been brainwashed to believe. When we retire, we will make less money, which means we will pay less in taxes. Oh my God, is that really what you want? Do you really want to retire with less money than you make today? Isn't retirement supposed to be the golden years, the years where we go and travel and check off all those things on the bucket list like the movies? That's going to take more money, not less. So when we retire and we want to take more money, number one, we need more money. But let's just say we subscribe to grandma's put money in a 401k. Maybe we have more money. Maybe the markets were good to us. Maybe we didn't have major fall-offs. Maybe fear didn't hit us. Maybe reality didn't hit us and make us sell all those assets when the markets go down. But I'm going on a tangent. Maybe, just maybe, we do have enough money. But then when we take that money out to go live the perfect life that we have so dreamed about, we have to pay taxes on that money. And those taxes 100% will be higher than they are today and much higher than they were back when I was putting money in a 401k. But let's talk about the other thing. How about this inflation problem? So I'm putting money in the 401k, which are my most valuable dollars. And then someday later in the future, I'm going to take those dollars back out, which really means I'm going to take weaker dollars out. I'm going to give up my best dollars today, my most valuable dollars that are worth the most. And then later, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I'm going to take that money back out, and those dollars are going to be worth less because of a hidden tax called inflation. And lastly, how many opportunities did I give up? By having my money in that 401k, which I could not touch or access outside of meager little loans, I could not touch or access for, well, however many years it was till I hit 59 and a half. How many opportunities were presented to me during that period of time that I couldn't take advantage of because all my money was in somebody else's control, Wall Street, the 401k companies, where I couldn't take it out without penalties and taxes? What was the value of those opportunities that came and went? Well, for each of you, the answer is going to be different than me, but those opportunities that I had to pass on because all my money was hung up or tied up out of my control in somebody else's control called a 401k, I'm going to say those opportunities were priceless. But it doesn't matter because I missed them. So now that I've gotten wise, let's talk about the few steps that I have changed, the few things that I have changed, which has then changed everything for me. First and foremost, today, this is 2022, I put zero money in a retirement plan, not one penny. Even though the accountant says, oh, you could put money in a 401k and save on taxes, I say, shut your mouth. I'm in control of my money. And even though I could get that tax deduction, it does not outweigh the opportunities that having my money in my control presents. So the first thing I stopped doing is giving up control of my money. And I started taking back control and putting money in vehicles where I fully controlled them, where I had access to them, and where I could deploy that money to take advantage of today's opportunities with the most valuable dollars, which are today's dollars. Step one, take back control. Step number two, I also learned that over the period of time with me putting money in 401ks, I learned that the best thing I could do is just change where my money goes first, and I started putting my money into vehicles where they were tax advantaged, where they grew tax-free, without all those IRS rules, without all those rules where I can only take it out at this time, I can only take this much, where I can only use that money under certain circumstances called hardships. I don't want to deal with any of that. I want to use my money when and how I want, and heck, I don't want to pay tax on the growth in that money. You think that sounds too good to be true? It's not. I found it. And you know how I found that machine, that place to put my money? I looked at where the wealthy put their money. I looked at where the banks put their money. I looked at where all the wealthiest families in history stored their capital, And guess where it was not? Retirement plan. Their money was in their control and their money was always working for them. So step number 2, change where your money and your capital sits. Step number 3. Once you find this place where your money sits, where it can earn uninterrupted compound interest, where it is in your control and can be deployed at any time without any restrictions, now what you've got to do is start to make your money work for you. You see, when I was growing up, I was always taught to believe that I had to work for money, just like you. You go out and you trade your hours for dollars. And throughout our lives, we put different values on our hour. Oh wow, when I first started working on the farm, I think I got paid $2.75 an hour. Now back then, that put gas in the dirt bike, that bought the oil for the 2-stroke, and that paid for apples and food that I needed. Could you live on $2.75 an hour today? No. So every single year of my life, that value that I got per hour of my time has increased. And then in your mind, you start thinking, how much is my hour actually worth? Is my hour worth $100? So would you take a job that paid you $100 an hour? Most of you are like, oh my God, that'd be a dream. No, actually, that would be a trap. That would be a trap because you are still broken. You are buying into the big lie that your hours should have a monetary value. Your hours are priceless. And you see, step number 3 is all about making your money go to work for you instead of you working for money. And where did I learn this? The wealthiest families in history, the wealthiest clients that I had, and all the people that were living the life that I wanted to live now, not 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future. They were living that life today. To live that life today, they had to change a few other things. They figured out where to put their money, where they earn uninterrupted compound interest, where that money was in their control. So the next logical thing would be to make their money go to work for them. And when they did that, their money was always out working for them, making money for them in the form of interest, dividends, profits, and many other things you can come up with. And every time their money worked for them, it produced these offsprings, interest, dividends, profits. Then what they would do is they might live on a little bit of those offsprings, the earnings, or they would reinvest and make that money go to work for them as well. All while their money was sitting in a place where it earned uninterrupted compound interest and it continued to grow even though it was all deployed and out there working for them. So step number 3, your money should always work for you instead of you always spending every waking hour working for money. The 4th thing that I had to understand, and this was one of the hardest things, is I had to stop focusing on future goals. I had to stop focusing on, what retirement was going to look like. What was I going to be doing 20 years from now, 10 years from now? And I had to start really just focusing on the journey. Well, that journey came to me one day when I was sitting with one of my mentors, and my mentor asked me why I work so hard. Easy question, right? I want this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. I rattled them all off to this mentor. And every single time I told him the reason why I work so hard, he said, nope, that's not why. Nope, that's not why. Imagine sitting there for 15 minutes. You're giving it your all. You're answering the question exactly how you think the question should be answered, and your mentor tells you, no, absolutely not. That's not why. Eventually, you throw your arms up and you're like, well, shit, why do I work so hard? And then he dropped the bomb on me. He said, you, meaning me, do not know what your perfect day looks like. Therefore, you are working so hard for a reason you don't even know because you couldn't articulate that to me. Until you know what your perfect day looks like, you will never have it. Folks, that was a realization that I wasn't ready for. It was one that then thrust me into about a 30-day period of literally focusing on just one thing, and that was writing out what my perfect day looked like. I sat there with a scratch pad and a pencil, and I wrote out what my day looked like, smelled like, felt like, every aspect of that day. In other words, when I opened my eyes, I knew what the smell was. It was the smell of salt water. Many of you know that smell when you're out on the coast and you're right there on the beach and you just take a big breath in, you know that smell. And I knew what I was seeing. White drapes blowing in the wind. I heard the ocean waves in the background. I knew exactly who I was with. I heard my daughter. And then throughout the day, I just wrote down every single thing that I did, every single thing that I saw, every single thing that I felt, and everything that I smelled. all my senses were used in me writing out my perfect day. And my perfect day concluded with me laying my head down on a pillow. I heard the ocean. I saw those drapes, even though it was dark. I saw those drapes blowing in the wind. And I smelled the salt water. And I fell asleep. That was my perfect day. I knew my destination because I knew what my perfect day looked like. Now, my perfect day didn't have to be someday in the far out future. I didn't have to wait until 59 and a half to have that perfect day. But what I did have to do is reverse engineer every part of that day to figure out how I can have them today. Now, I just gave you the first 4 steps. The first 4 steps to me starting to realize how to have my perfect day. Now, you're not going to have your perfect day all in one shot. Your perfect day is going to come in different little milestones. But we don't call them milestones, we call them inch stones, because a mile is a long way, but an inch, every inch, you find a new stone, and that new stone makes up part of your perfect day. As my perfect day started to come together, the car in the garage actually appeared in my garage. The smell coming through those drapes actually appeared. Maybe not real, but I had scents that smelled like salt water. The sound of the ocean, although I don't live on the ocean, I made sure I was on the ocean quite a lot so that I'd hear the waves. When I stayed places, I would stay on the ocean. And when I wasn't on the ocean listening to the ocean waves crash, Amazon created this great little thing that I put next to my bed. And when I went to bed, all I did is I said, Alexa, play ocean waves. And I tricked my mind to believe. You see, all the things in your perfect day don't have to be exactly as they are, but you have to trick your mind to believe that they are as your perfect day says they are. But your perfect day has to continuously change, because once that car's in the garage, well, you better up your ante. If that's the car that was in your perfect day when you have it, well, what's the next car going to be? Constantly change your perfect day, because you don't ever want to arrive. When you arrive, the only place to go is back down the other side, so never arrive. That's step number 4. And step number 5 to Grandma's wisdom of putting all my money into a 401k so that someday later in the future, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 59 and a half, you can sail off into the sunset and not do what Grandma and Grandpa did, which was have to work after retirement, rely on somebody else's pension payment, which wasn't enough because it didn't keep pace with inflation, and live in a mobile home park community, which was actually a great upbringing to actually be part of, but not the one that's in my perfect day. So step number 5. This is one of the biggest mistakes I made throughout my entire life. I would work hard. I even started making my money work for me. I changed where my money went. I knew what my perfect day was, but I still had not honed into the one final step. Everything that I did in my past was done for something I wanted. I would work hard. I would do things. I would speak. I would do all those different things so that those created something for my benefit. And because I was always doing everything to serve me and solve my problems, I failed to realize one of the most important laws of wealth. What I was lacking, which you all need to realize you are lacking this as well, is that every single day, every single thing you do, every single moment you spend should not be to solve your problem. It should be to solve somebody else's problem. You see, once I changed that one little thing, now this is step 5 because you got to solve those other things first, but step 5, I started then solving everybody else's problem. I woke up, I started creating content, I started speaking, I started doing all the things that I did for one purpose, to solve someone else's problem. And let me show you how I actually started this. This is an easy way that I used to get my mindset and my habits built around solving and serving others. How many of you in the mail receive those envelopes that come? Sometimes they have a dime, a penny, a nickel on them. Heck, sometimes they even have $1. And every time you get it, you look at it and you're like, oh, here's another person asking for money. Here's another foundation or another charity asking for money. And what did most of us used to do? And what do most of us do today? You get upset, you tear it up, you throw it in the garbage, right? Well, here's what I did. I stopped tearing them up. I stopped throwing them out. I started opening them up with joy, thinking, oh my God, whose life can I change? Whose stomach can I feed? What child can I put a pair of shoes on today? What cat can I save from the inevitable death? And I started looking at every one of those envelopes as an opportunity for me to change somebody else's life. And it doesn't have to be a person. It can be an animal. It can be anything. I stopped focusing on who was sending the envelopes, and I started then taking them out with joy, looking at the thing, and literally just checking a box, $10, $25, $100, whatever my heart said. Sometimes when I was having hard financial times, I could only afford $5 or $1. And then I did something that most of you probably don't even know how to do if you're younger. I actually wrote a check. Every single time I write a check. Why? Because the act of actually writing it out makes you know that you're solving somebody's problem. So let me show you how I developed this habit. And I just so happened to get a couple of these. Matter of fact, I get one every single day now, because as you give more, they send you more of these envelopes. But just take that as a gift. Here's one right here, ASPCA. See, here's the little box. I just check whatever one I want, or they always have another one. Maybe I write $10 there. I physically take a checkbook and I write a check out without any, I don't ever think about the get back, right? Because we all have heard, if you give, you get. Forget about the get. If you always focus on the get, you're going back to the old ways and you're focusing on you. It's not about the get, it's about the give. So this today, I will write a check for. Okay? Then there's this one, Easter celebration, where hunger ends and hope begins. I don't even know who this is. Buffalo City Mission. There we go. Here's your little thing. Check the box or other. I will mail a check to them today. And then here's another one with a little dog. Now, I'm not a dog guy, I'm a cat guy, but it's okay. Oh, it's another ASPCA right there. I will check a box. You can see here, they didn't just send me one, they sent me two, because hey, they probably have an algorithm that figured out that every time they send me one, I mail a check. So I will write 2 checks. Now, most of you are like, why would you write 2? Why wouldn't you just give more? It's the principle, it's the habit. 1 check, 2 check. Anyone see how cheap checks are these days? Heck, nobody even uses checks because everybody's using all these digital forms, these Venmos and everything else. I write the check. As I developed that habit and I kept giving, yes, did I start getting more? Of course, but I never focused on that. I continually keep doing this, I teach this, and I'm hoping that you adopt this because this is the simplest way for you to understand that every day should be about you giving and solving somebody else's problems. I'm solving doggy problems, kitty problems, I'm solving hunger problems, and hope problems. And hope is the most powerful thing you have. So folks, those are the 5 steps that I took based on grandma's knowledge, which back then to her was good knowledge, but seeing how that hurt me and how that affected my life, I realized that that knowledge wasn't good knowledge. It was just the false reality and the false lies that we've been told our whole life. It's time for you to change. Start by changing just one thing. Change where your money goes. Put yourself in control of your money. Start giving more. Start making your money go to work for you, and learn to do what the wealthy have done, which always serves someone else. And when you serve others, it always comes back, but never focus on that. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, my name's Chris Naugle. Go out there and take advantage of these 5 steps. They will change your life. And if you all want to start by changing that one thing, then you want to check out this video right here, because that is where your money should go first. See you next time.